Now, once the data goes into the staging table, okay, here's what's going to happen at a very micro level. Whenever data goes in from the into the staging table, so what we would end up doing here, let's just say that we would, in the staging table, all right, so in our city table, what would be, let's look at the city table first. What would be our columns in the city table? What would our city table look like? We'd have an ID column. What else would it be? The city name. Okay, and that's probably about it, right? All right. Okay, so this would be right here. Let's say that this is row 1 and the city is Alaska. Or excuse me, not Alaska, sorry. The city would be, what's city X? There's going to be another one we're going to have to need here in a minute. All right, then we've got the state. Should have put this one up above. What I get for. What would the state be? ID and state. So this would be 1 and Alaska. Okay, now, what do we know about city and state? Is there a hierarchy here? Is there? So we know that each state has multiple cities, don't we? So, it might look like that, right? Okay. So here we have ID 1 is Alaska. What should be here? State ID 1. See that? Right? Do we see that? So when we build these dimensions, what happens is, okay, so when we bring this table and we build it when we start to build this out, we build this over to staging. Here's what's going to end up happening. I'm going to add some columns here. I know this is getting kind of messy. I need a bigger board. I'm going to need state ID. I'm going to need city ID. I'm going to need, might as well make some more room here. I'm going to need year ID. I'm going to need, what else do I have? I got city, state, and year. Let's go with that. And then I'm going to need a normal ID column. Okay? Now this we're going to call this long thing now, we're no longer going to look at this as our CSV. We're now going to look at this as our staging table right now. Okay? So in this, all right, here's the goal. I need to, right, for each city, I need an ID. For each state, I need an ID. For each year, I need an ID. And this is basically going to be the primary key column. These are going to be foreign keys. Okay? So we've got primary key column, foreign key, foreign key, foreign key. All right, now, we just kind of did an example here of just kind of like a quick, just an example of, we identified that we needed a state dimension and a city dimension and a year dimension. We're talking about city and state. Now we also recognize that there is a hierarchy that exists between city and state. All right? So I'm going to erase that now. Recognize that. We're like, oops, wait a minute, this exists. Okay? So now, here's how the process works to build this staging table. When we populate to the CSV, these guys right now, this would be a 1 and a 2. This would be null, null, null. These would all be null values, right? All we did was grab this CSV data and drop it into a staging table. In our staging table, we predefined it with these 3 additional columns. Those columns have no data in them, right? So the goal is to get these right here, to break this out into this design right here. Now, here's the technique that we do this. We always build the dimensions first. So, in order to stage our dimensions to be prepped for our final, we'll worry about this last. We have several staging tables, okay, that we're going to work with. All right? We need to be able to build our dimensions from this data that's staged. Actually, we'll go ahead and just make these dimensions final. Okay. So we need to make, this guy is going to be the state dimension. Or what's this guy going to be? This is the state or this is the city?
The bottom one's the state.
All right? This right here is going because we have 1 to many. So if we knew the city, we could find out the state. But if we know the state, we don't know the city, do we? So this is going to be the state dim, and this is going to be the city dim. We'll make this the year. Okay? So we have to create the state dimension before we can create the city dimension. Does that make sense? Because, so what we need to do is the first step here to building the dimension is we said first step 1, we build your dims. Okay? Final step, step 2, we build the fact table. Okay, so we got 2 steps that we have to accomplish. All right? Now, when we build our dimensions, we always build them from the outside in. So if we identify a hierarchy, by design, we must populate this table first. Now we said that this table, we're going to populate first our state table. I'm going to rewrite it. This is our state table. We said that it's going to have its own ID column. That's going to be its primary key. We said that it's going to have the state name. So ID 1 is Alaska. Okay, so how do we get this table populated? What query would we run on our staging table to give me a list of states? What SQL query would we run? What do we build? Select distinct. So if this was 20,000 rows of data, and from that 20,000 rows, if I said select distinct state from this table, it would give me a list of the 50 states or whatever states are in there, if there wasn't all 50. Okay? And with that, I would insert it into the state dimension. You with me? So we would select distinct, into this table. It would then, these would be auto-generated primary keys for every state in this data. Let's say it was all 50 states.